people can ever do this as well. And so let's read it. And Aaron shall bear the names of the children of Israel in the breastplate of judgment upon his heart. Now I want you to notice the first thing. The reason why I chose this is because a couple times here, and there's other places also in the Torah in which we hear about the Urim and the Thummim, and the point and the focus is that it's written on Aaron's heart. Aaron is the high priest. How many of you know that every part of your body has a resonating frequency that makes it what it is? It makes a sound. Why is everything in your body making a sound? Because it's moving. It's vibrating. That's what electrons do. They move. They shoot around. They fly around. You know, atoms they give off electrons, and therefore they change and become different types of isotopes and things of that nature because of those dang electrons. They're just flying all over the place all the time, right? So. The same is true. Your liver has a different resonating frequency than your mind, which has a different resonating frequency than your prostate. And your liver, sir, is different than my liver. How much different, we don't know. But that's the reason why you can't just have one frequency to heal everybody's liver. And there's a lot of people whose livers are healed through frequency. But I would suggest you please don't jump on me. It's going to be pretty much an accident. I knew I did too much. What I mean by that is that you can't use, if my liver was healed because of some frequency, and you try to use it on his liver may be twice the size of mine. My liver may be diseased, and yours may be perfectly clean. So it's going to have a different resonating frequency. If you take a wine glass and sit there, it's going to have a certain frequency. If you put some water in it, you're going to change that resonating frequency. If you put wine instead of water, you're going to change it. And so therefore, that's the reason why alchemy did not work for Isaac Newton in the game. It's because everything's different. All things are not equal. One of the stupidest sayings of all time is this: all things being equal. You ever heard that phrase before? I heard it all the time in science. I hear it in religious circles too. We know all things being equal. The problem with that, see, that's uniformitarianism. In the evolutionary world, we call that uniformitarianism. Everything's just the same. As a matter of fact, it's in 2 Peter. Everything's going on just like it was in the beginning, since the fathers and etc. No, that's evolutionary theory. The fact is, stuff happens. I'll just put it that way. And as a matter of fact, in Hebrew we say, stuff happens. Okay? Floods, things of that nature. And so things do change. All things being equal is used to prove how old things are by evolutionists. They'll find something and they'll say, well, it's this many millions of years old. Why? Because of the decay rate of certain elements that are involved in whatever it is that they find. And so they assumed, all things being equal, that the decay rate was the same as we go backwards in time. And the decay rate is based upon other elements in the universe, like nitrogen and hydrogen and things of that nature, and that changes like every 30 seconds. And that's an understatement, all right? Things like that are changing all the time. And so you can't say all things being equal. Now getting back to this, I'm making more of a mess of it than I need to. Scotty, you hanging in there, brother? Boy, you're a tough old cookie, I tell you. I don't know, how long has Scotty been in this congregation? Or visiting? A couple months, a couple years?
About 3 years.
Has it been that long?
About 3.
About 3 years? Would you agree with that? I just want to make sure I'm not lying. Just build you up. Okay, all right, 3 years. I gotta stop and tell this. Sorry. Story time. Now, I may remember, now we're going to find out who remembers the story the same. Guys, yeah, all things being equal. Things ain't going to be equal this way. This is the story as I remember it. I'm at home one day, having a good time, things are very peaceful. It was a wonderful morning, sun was shining, birds were singing, phone rings. Pick up the phone. Mr. Scott. My name is Dr. Scotty Thomas. And he rattles off his credentials for about 5 minutes. Okay? And he goes, and somebody gave me one of your little books. throw out everything I ever learned the rest of my life, okay? And when he said that, am I close enough? Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah. I mean, he started out trying to make me think he was really going to kill me. And so he had me come up to his church that he was pastoring up there in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I don't have time to go into all of this past, but I learned his past up there. If there's one thing we need to make sure we don't fail to do in this generation, is to sit down and listen to someone like Scotty and his wife. This man is one of the most colorful, dramatic, cool, what's the word I'm looking for? Duplicitous or something life, okay? One extreme to the other. Real quick, okay? But, he's telling me all these stories, back in the mob days and everything. Can I say that? Back in the mob days. And, now, I'm sitting there, and quite honestly, Scotty doesn't know this part, so now he's going to learn. When he's telling all these stories, I'm sitting there, when he's not looking, I'm going. My eyes are rolling back in my head, I'm going, what did I get into? And so that night, he has me sleep in this little bed he produced in his office. Right? I hadn't been in his office yet. And he's telling me about, and Sammy did this and Frank did that. And I'm going, wait a minute. Sammy and Frank? How many Sammy and Franks are there in the world in that combination at the same time? And he's telling me about Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and all these people and all these. And like I said, I'm just, okay, whatever you think, dude. Okay? And so he puts me in his office and he says, I'll see you in the morning. And so the lights are on the office and all these pictures around the office of Scotty playing golf with Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. Now this is his first life, all right? The first 35 or so years of his first life with the mob, okay? And the Vegas thing. Pardon me? Yep, 1957. We're in the 50s and 60s, and we're in Vegas. And, there's Cadillacs, and headless horses, and people's beds, and then, to be quite honest, so we don't sort of drag this on and on, there was a turn on it that just turned on a dime and became so faithful to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which led him to where he is right now. But he went from one extreme to the other. Next thing you know, he's graduated. He's gone to Dallas Theological Seminary, and he's hanging out with Billy Graham, and I'm sure Michael the Archangel was there for him. I don't know. But it just went. I'm telling this as quick as I can, Scott, this way. But it's just a tremendous story that just will change your life a little bit. If you haven't sat down and talked to Scotty about it, please do that. And Scotty, I'm very honored that the reason why it's hard to say this much longer is because my father just died, and his name was Scotty, and everybody called him Scotty. And no. I'm honored that you can kind of. I still have a Scotty around. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Okay, even though my father is going on. Okay, let's get back to this before the eyes start blinking. The point being is the heart. He's the high priest. The heart's going to be the place where everything starts. Where the heart is pure and clean, then all that blood and all that oxygen, all that information sent to the brain in places like that are also going to be the same thing. Everything focuses on the heart. Once again, if the heart is bad, then it's pumping stuff is not to the rest of the parts of the body. So it makes it a point to say that the Urim and Thummim is not going to be on Aaron's mind. Okay? Jim on my mind. Okay, it's not going to be on his mind. It's going to be on his heart. So they're going to put this in the breastplate upon his heart when he goes into the holy place for a memorial before Yahweh continually. And you shall put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be upon Aaron's heart when he goes in before Yahweh, and Aaron shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart before Yahweh continually. 3 or 4 times we are told upon his heart. There's other places where they're going to come to him for judgments based upon the Urim and Thummim in the breastplate upon his heart. All right? And he's going to make judgments based upon what the rabbis say is basically 2 stones. Now, I'm just telling you what the rabbis say. All right? The rabbis say that the Urim and Thummim were 2 stones. And those 2 stones lit up or didn't light up. That's the reason why Urim is lights. Okay? Tamim means something complete. Sometimes, like we said earlier, and Noah was perfect in his generations. That is Tamim. That is complete in his generations. So fundamentally, the same base for the thumb is the same base for something said about Noah. And so they believe that these 2 stones would light up or not light up. Now, one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is because I had to deal with an atheist on this a few years ago. As a matter of fact, the last thing I did, third shameless promotion, the last thing I did on my tour last year was called There Is a Creator Responding to Atheists, which is really the thing I love to do the most, I would say, is dealing with atheists and science and those kind of things. And so I had someone bring up this idea of this. He was a Mormon who turned atheist. He was raised in the Mormon religion. And in the Mormon religion, Joseph Smith would make decisions by these rocks he put in a hat. Okay? And he'd look at these stones in this hat and make these decisions. And so we likened it to this goofy mythological kind of thing of looking at these rocks to determine, to make a decision. Kind of like the lots thing, casting lots. The whole purpose of casting lots, by the way, because I've read books by Wiccans that mentioned the whole thing with Samuel and the woman rise from the dead, the witch at Endor. And I've heard them mention that the Bible uses this black magic because it casts lots, and that's what we do in the Wiccan. But the purpose of casting lots is to make a decision about 2 things that are ostensibly equal. That's the reason why you cast lots. If one is clearly better than the other, then you don't need to cast lots. Cast lots is one is just the same as the other, so you cast lots. Matthias and what was the other dude? Or his name was another guy named Yeshua, I guess, and Matthias to take Judas's place in Acts chapter 1. They cast lots. Why? Because there was no difference between the 2. They couldn't make a decision. So casting lots isn't for that purpose. Casting lots is to make a decision between 2 equal things. So having said that, so I'm sorry. Here's what I want to go to. The rabbis state that when they would make a decision, where's the thingy? I can't find my. What do I do with it? Does anybody know? Someone needs to be in charge of me up here. It's next to the coffee? No. I've lost it. I've done something with the marker. No. Okay, someone fess up. Okay, they probably won't show up. These little things probably won't show up, I bet you. Okay, that's not too bad. Meanwhile, you guys can keep an eye out. You guys good for 20 more minutes? All right. Oh yeah, I did. Thank you. Thank you. Trust me that. Okay, you get $2. We've earned another $1 for that one. Okay, and these lights on and off, the combination of lights going on and off, is when they made these decisions by the high priest. Now, the only reason I'm bringing this up is because your computers, the computers we use, operate fundamentally exactly the same way. When I first went to get a secular degree, 1971, I remember that everybody was telling me, or my father was telling me, that I should go into computer programming because that's the thing of the future. And I remember at the time going, I don't think so. Or was I wrong? Okay, but he said that's what I do. And so I took these courses. I took Cobalt and Fortran and courses like that. and we learned the hardware thing first. That's the first thing we learned, was the hardware of how it works. Then we started getting into classes on doing algorithms and things of that nature. This is where I had to quit, because the first day of class, the teacher came in and said, if you love to sit for days at a time all by yourself and nobody in your room, you're going to love this class. Okay? I said, what? I can't talk to nobody for days? So say, out the door I went. But I did learn the hardware. And basically, I'm going to oversimplify this for the sake of time. Basically, your computers work on basically two numbers. It's called binary codes, two numbers. In our culture, we have a decimal system, right? Okay. I know most of you know this, but think about the people who may not. We have a decimal system. That means we have 0 through 9. That's the only. So every number that we have is all based upon 10 numbers, and it's just a combination of those 10 numbers that we come up with every number. And so, but in your computers, it's a binary code. It's only got two numbers, a 0 and a 1. A 0 and a 1. Now, these microchips and everything that these things are written on, okay, have places that have numerical values associated with them. For example, the first place is a 1, second place, and everything doubles after that. Position number 1 has a 1. Position number 2 represents a 1. Position number 2 represents a 2, and everything doubles. Okay? Everything doubles after that. Now we're going to do a little quiz here, so pay attention, because I'm going to call on some of you. What did I do? Oh, you're right. I wrote 48. Thank you. Thanks for catching that. That's 64. Then 128. You know how it goes. Oh, we run out of room. That's right. Now, from a simple point of view, each one of those positions only have a choice of two numbers, a 0 and a 1. The 0 means the position is off. A 1 means the position is on. So 0 is light off. Nothing happened, right? Remember, oversimplification, but this is basically how it works. If there's a 1 in position, that means the light is on. And then you add up all the position, and that gives you a number, and those numbers are converted into letters. And then you get into hexadecimal things. We're not going to get into the details of the minutiae of that. But then they eventually produce letters, and letters are translated into pictures and sound. And so every picture you get, every movie you watch, every email you answer, every Google shot you get from outer space, unless the Earth is flat, it comes from a combination of these zeros and ones fundamentally in your computer. And so therefore, if the 1 light is on, then it's going to have a 1 in it. If the 2 light, remember, you only get 1, 2, 4, 6. You only get one position that's odd, like me. Okay. So here's basically how it works. If it's a 0, the light is off. Remember, if it's a 1, the light is on. So in the 1 position, the light is on. In the 2 position, the light is off. In the 4 position, the light is on. So that number represents 5. Can you see that? Okay. Those of you with computers, okay. Because I've already done this 1,000 times, and I know some of you going, okay. It's these positions that's going to give you this. This means light on, light off. Okay? The 1 light is on. The 4 is on. 1 plus 4 is 5. All right? Now we're going to do this again. So light is on, light is off. The point being is that those lights going on and off and those combinations is eventually going to end up with you picking up your phone and saying, Siri, who won the baseball game last night? Are you with? Okay? Because what you're going to do with these phones is you're going to ask the phone something, and the phone's going to respond to you based upon what? Lights on, lights off. Extreme oversimplification, but just bear with me. Lights on, lights off. Your computers operate with energized sand. Okay? It's just energized sand. That's all your computers are. They're just crushed rocks. Alright? And they're energized. And therefore, it's producing all these images. Remember, Yeshua said that these rocks could cry out. Now, see, we think that that's just hyperbole or something like that. Figures of speech and things of that nature. When in reality, he's saying something that they did not know then, but we know now. There's a difference between a language that's equated with a low context and a language that's equated with a high context. We live in a world now where language is equated with a high context. What do I mean by that? Billions of words. Billions of people, all kinds of 6,500 plus languages. I'm doing a little bit of my language seminar here. 6,500 plus languages in the world, and all these people speak. Now, I'm not talking about the ones that pass away every day. There was 140 of them that pass away every year. 140 languages pass away every year. And so we have all these thousands of languages, and so that means it's a high context. And sometimes people try to judge what they were doing with pictographs with a low context thousands of years ago based upon a high context view now. And so then they make statements like, well, there's not enough Hebrew letters to form every thought. There's only 22. You know how many different combinations of letters you can get working with 22 of them? Well, ultimately, even though there's no Hebrew word with 22 letters, unless Marcy knows something that I don't know, okay. But I mean, if you had 22 letters, you had to combine it would be 22 to the 22nd power. That's how many. Okay, if you only had 2, all right, then 2 to the second power, you can get 4 things from 2 numbers. All right, that's how it works. Anyway, getting back to this. The only reason I'm doing any of this, for those of you who got the glazed look in your eye right now, the only reason I'm doing this is to show you that the Father knew exactly what he was doing. And there's nothing weird or magical about what was going on then, because our computers work the same way. A light on is a light off, and yet we can get answers and judgments in our phone based upon light on, light off today, but they couldn't do that back there then. The reason why they think that is because they think from a human evolution point of view. Most linguists are trained from an evolutionary point of view. Language is evolving. Language, I believe, is not evolving, it's devolving. And the only reason why we think we've already been trained since it's evolving, therefore the simple things means primitive. The language was much simpler then, lower context. You don't have toasters and ice cream. Etc. is what I mean by the whole context. All right, getting back to this because I'm going to give everybody a quiz. So if this is off, this one's on, this one's on, this one's off, this on, what number is that? No? Yeah, you're right. I thought I put a 1 in one position. The only way you're going to get, if you're going to have an odd number, you always got to have that one. That light's always got to be on if you need an odd number, because all the rest of them are all going to be what? Okay, so the fact that you got it so quick, we're not going to do anymore. You got what I'm trying to say. And the whole purpose, the whole function was that our modern computers, remember, what was the problem in the days of Noah? A word that's used for computers today in the Hebrew language. That was the problem in the days of Noah. And the same thing is going on today. It just happens to be my opinion, and this is just Brad's opinion. Some of you in here have been around long enough to know that there was a time, not too long ago, when we thought the Beast was a 3-story computer in Brussels, Belgium. So I remember those days. Here's the difference. The nature of prophetic teachers, as soon as something else comes along, they all went the other direction. Okay? I don't know how long it was the European Union, and it was the Roman Catholic Church, and the EU, and all this kind of stuff, and the Antichrist was going to come out of Italy, and etc. And then as soon